All right, Sarah, looks like we're live, correct? Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. So I'm going to call in order our Monday, April 5th, 2001 Planning Commission meeting. And I'm going to take roll call. I'm going to do roll call of the people I see here, and then we'll take it from there. Commissioner Maggio?
Here.
Commissioner Mason?
Present.
Commissioner Strom?
Here.
Vice Chair Radnich?
Present.
And Chair Farzan present. It appears that Commissioners Heising and Lamonge are not present. Just for the record, I believe that at least Commissioner Lamonge will be joining us at a certain point during the meeting, and that might be the case with Commissioner Heising too. Before we move to adopt the agenda, I just wanted to confirm, and Sarah, you can tell me, item 8A is not going to be on tonight's agenda, correct?
So we can open it if you would like, just to sort of start the conversation. There wasn't a staff report, but I can do a brief verbal staff report if you would like to discuss it, or at least start the conversation.
Yeah, why don't we just go ahead and put it off? I just rather just keep it all together if that's okay with everybody else, since to have the report before we discuss it. Is that okay with the rest of the group?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Can I have somebody move to adopt the agenda with the change with item 8A not on it?
I move we adopt the agenda with the changes just mentioned.
Second.
All right, gonna go ahead and do the roll call again. Commissioner Maggio?
Yes.
Commissioner Mason?
Aye.
Commissioner Strong? You're on mute.
Aye.
Okay. Vice Chair Radnich?
Aye.
And Chair Farzan? Aye. Sarah, do we have any public comments for things not on tonight's agenda?
If you would like to make a public on an item that is not on the agenda this evening, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're calling in, press *9. I see one hand raised. However, it's been raised since the beginning, but we'll go ahead and let him in and see if there is a question. Hi, Conrad. If you have a comment that is not on the agenda this evening, feel free to unmute yourself and make a comment. So I click the ask to unmute button. So if you want to go ahead and follow through on that.
Mr. Brees, you're still on, you're still muted.
I was unmuted till a minute ago. The system just is terrible.
Now you're unmuted.
Okay, here I am.
Conrad, did you have a comment on an item that's not on the agenda this evening?
Now I have a comment with the Cancer Support Center.
Great. We'll ask for public comments when that item is being discussed.
Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and promote Nick here. Hi, Nick, you're in the meeting if you'd like to unmute and make your comment.
I think we're all getting back used to doing this. Mr. Teophanis, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I'm used to it myself. You're on mute still.
And actually, it's Teofano.
Oh, even better. Theophanis. All right, great. Thank you. You're unmuted, it appears now.
Okay. I'll go ahead and I just saw a note from the project applicant for the cancer support, and this may be one person wanting to make a comment during that time. So we'll go ahead and make them an attendee for now. If there's any other public comments that are not associated with cancer support or any other item that's listed on the agenda tonight, go ahead and raise your hand. I don't see any. Oh, Don Jenkins coming in. Hi, Don.
Thank you, but I just heard you say the cancer support talk is later. I'll come back later.
Excellent, thank you. Great. I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any changes with respect to the draft meeting minutes that were included in the consent calendar? I know sometimes we have some, so I figured I'd ask before moving on them. I'll take that as a no. Does anybody want to move to adopt the consent calendar?
I would just like to make a note about item 5D. There was a revision to some of the numbers in the annual progress report, which I emailed to the commission earlier today and also posted to the website. So it's the total number of housing units approved should be 217, not 396 as it's listed. And the total housing units disapproved should be 0. Those were some minor calculation errors in the Excel spreadsheet.
Great. Thank you. With those changes to 5D, anyone want to move to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Get a second?
Second,
Second,
All right.
third.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take roll call. Commissioner Maggio,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
yes.
Commissioner Strong.
Aye. And my last name's Sturm.
I'm sorry. I keep going back and my apologies.
Did I tell you my maiden name was Charbonneau? And I thought when I changed my name to Sturm for sure, it'd be smooth sailing, but not so much. It's okay. You're not alone.
Sorry about that. Vice Chair Radnich
Aye.
and Sheriff Arzon, aye. So 5-0 vote. And we are now moving to new public hearings. And it is L04-19, HDP 17-9, and TP 45-19 Cancer Support Community regarding request for land use permit, hillside development permit, and a category 2 tree permit to construct a 12,909 square foot commercial building. With that, Sarah, do you have a staff report?
I do. Okay, you all can see that screen share?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, commissioners. The item before you tonight is a request for a land use permit and design review to construct a new 12,000 square foot building to be used as a facility for an organization known as the Cancer Support Community. This is a group that provides various support services to individuals and families dealing with cancer. The applicant, I'm sure, will provide an overview of the services provided and also the site layout and site design, building design. So I'm going to keep it high level with sort of just from the planning perspective and talk about the land use, the city regulations, and then the process. So in terms of context, this project is located in the western portion of the city. It is on a 5.75 acre parcel immediately adjacent to the Lafayette Reservoir. Directly across is the Lafayette Community Garden, and to the west is an approximately 62-acre vacant parcel. Staff did mail a notice of public hearing to the surrounding property owners using the largest possible buffer that our GIS system allows, which is 1,640 feet. It still didn't get that many adjacent residences, just given that it's so far away from all of them. But it did go to 107 owners and interested parties. The matter is also currently under review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. An initial study mitigated negative declaration was prepared and posted on the website. We are in the public review period, which will end on May 3rd. Once that period ends, the CEQA consultant will respond to all public comments, and those will be made available on the website as well. In terms of the project scope, so as I mentioned, it's an existing vacant parcel. It's currently zoned LR10, which is low density residential. Minimum lot size is 10 acres. The site is 5.75 acres. So essentially that means it would not be able to be subdivided. The LR10 zoning was placed on top of the parcel after it was created. The new structure is approximately 12,000 square feet, and the height is 33 feet 3 inches to the max, to the ridge, and below the 30 feet to the midpoint, which is allowed for the zoning. They're providing 44 parking spaces and 6 bike parking stalls. They are removing 14 protected trees and replacing them with 44 15-gallon trees, which is in excess of the required mitigation. And then the use is ultimately a community assembly and education. So wanted to go over a little bit about the land uses. So as you know, in all of the land use districts are established from the general plan land use designations. And within the zoning code, there are uses that require land use permits and those that are permitted by right. In this case, one of the uses that is allowed to be applied for as it relates to a land use permit is it's not quite a use, but it's listed as community building, club, or activities of a quasi-public, social or fraternal character, private recreational facility, such as a golf club, swimming pool, or tennis club, whether or not operated for profit. This is sort of directly from the zoning code. And in 2016, the Planning Commission determined that this particular use, since it didn't fit cleanly into any one category, could be identified as a community assembly and education activity, and therefore it could apply for a land use permit. So typically during land use permit processes, the Planning Commission will look for possible impacts and ways to mitigate those impacts. And then looking at it from just a city regulation perspective, it does appear to meet all of the zoning regulations in terms of the land use, as I just mentioned. The setbacks in the LR10 zoning district are minimum 50 feet. They are meeting all of those for structures. The height, as I mentioned, is 30 feet to the midpoint of the highest roof form, which they're meeting. Parking regulations are governed by the parking chapter 6-6 of the Lafayette Municipal Code, and they are meeting those as well based on the use and the number of spaces, as well as the tree ordinance and the mitigations required for removing trees. As well as the general plan. And then more specifically, staff has outlined each of the elements and sort of how it relates to those in the staff report. In terms of the review process, the Planning Commission has historically liked to sort of have an initial meeting and then sort of frame the questions for the referral agencies and determine which referral agencies or referral bodies it should go to. In this case, staff finds that appropriate to go to the Design Review Commission because of the new building, to look at the context, bulk, mass, privacy, articulation, and colors and materials, as well as landscaping. And then also the Transportation and Circulation Commission, based on the improvements and changes to the right-of-way. So there's some improvements to the roadway for turn pockets and striping, as well as sidewalk. And then ultimately, this will come back to the Planning Commission and for final action on the land use itself. So staff is recommending that the Planning Commission review the proposed project, conduct a public hearing, provide any direction to the applicant, and then refer the matter to the Design Review Commission and the Transportation and Circulation Commission. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Mason?
One question, Sarah, I don't have to take this now, but just letting everybody know I will ask when it eventually comes back. I'm fine with changing the designation. I think that they would have written that in the first place. But once you call something General Assembly, I'm always kind of a little bit hesitant because that also has specific design requirements of live load requirements and things like that. And I'm concerned that something will be deemed a General Assembly, but not designed as a General Assembly. And it might be a little bit disingenuous. So I did want to just throw that out there for when it comes back, so that when I ask the question, whether you or the consultants, the applicant or the applicant's consultants can respond to that. Because I don't want somebody later coming in and using it as an assembly occupancy when it is not an assembly occupancy.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions for Sarah from the commissioners?
I have one.
Commissioner Maggio?
Yes, staff I was not on the commission, but my recollection is that this project came before the city and planning before. Is it the same project?
It is the same use, yes. So the use came before you to determine whether or not it could be, they could apply for a land use permit, but the approval of the land use permit was not granted, but that's what's being requested now. And then it did go to Design Review Commission on a couple of occasions for some study sessions.
Okay. And then they pulled back on the project?
You know, I'll probably let the applicant just kind of explain
Okay.
their timeline a little bit.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner Maggio?
Thank you.
Vice Chair Radnich?
Sarah, I have a couple questions on the CEQA document. So should I ask those now or wait till the presentation and ask at the end if everything isn't answered?
Either way, if you want to ask it now and then the applicant is maybe able to respond in there.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So it's just kind of regarding, so I'm looking down at my notes here, regarding VMT in the CEQA document. I just wanted to clarify, when you look at the MMRP for, I think it's transportation 2 for the mitigation measure 2, where it's talking about the TDM plan. I think in the MMRP, I was reading it as that they would implement trip reductions during construction. That was the period that was listed. But then in the text, I was reading it as the operational trips for the workers were what was needing to be reduced by the 37%. So just down the road, if that's something that the CEQA consultant can provide a little clarification on after the comment period or something like that when it comes back to us. And then I was also wondering, I wasn't clear on when it says 37% reduction, which is basically the 6 trips from 16 down to 10. I know the mitigation measure says that they'll do a TDM plan, a trip reduction plan, basically reduction measures. But then what's going to happen? I know they listed like, using BART could be one option or carpooling. So are each of those individual measures equal to a 37% reduction, or would the applicant need to do a combination of them? I assume that since they're in there, the applicant is open to doing a combination. Then my last question is, what happens, Sarah, if down the road, 2 years from now, they're monitoring the annual trip reductions and they're not meeting the reduction? What happens to the land use permit at that time? Does it get revoked? Does it stay? So just if those answers can maybe be clarified, or those questions, sorry, can be clarified at our next time we see it, that'd be great. Thanks.
Thanks.
I actually had a couple of CEQA related questions too, so I'll just ask now and involve the traffic too. Looking at the analysis, most of the trips were coming from East Lafayette coming west to the property. And I think the assumption was most people in Lafayette live east versus west. I guess my question again is, how many people at the facility actually live in Lafayette versus coming in from elsewhere, ergo coming from the west versus east? I know that's not trying to get super technical, but I think the assumption is that people are just coming from the east because it's Lafayette, but I think there are people who come from all over the Bay Area to go to the facility.
Thank you. I'll pose those questions to the CEQA consultant.
Any more questions for staff? I hate saying staff, for Sarah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sarah, could you speak a little bit about the land use permit running with the land, not being specific to the tenant or the owner, and how we could address that through conditions of approval?
Yeah, so typically a land use permit, once it's approved, would run with the property as long as the conditions are still being met, regardless of who is operating or owning the property, unless there was a sunset period for some reason listed on the condition.
So there are several different kinds of facilities that could fall within this land use that would have pretty different impacts. So is the approach that the conditions of approval will be specific enough, or we're going to address the different impacts and we feel comfortable? I mean, is there a way, you talked about sunsetting, tying a certain time period to it, but there's no tying the tenant or the owner.
Correct. It would be, it's a use that's associated with the land, not the owner or the tenant. So if you're concerned about, for instance, like a church coming in, which would have a much higher parking ratio, ultimately they wouldn't be able to, because unless they could meet the parking requirement. So they would have to come back, have a change of conditions, or show that they could meet the parking requirement in order for that use to be installed. So whatever impacts you see for this type of use with this size should be mitigated and or conditioned to be appropriate for the site.
Right, and I was thinking about hours too, but we can address that if we feel necessary. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sarah? All right. So who is going to speak on behalf of the applicant? I see many faces.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Tufel. I'm the CEO of Cancer Support Committee. I'm going to start actually. Sarah, can I share my screen now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let me go ahead. All right. Can you all see that?
Yes.
All right, in 1 second. All right. Okay, there we go. So as I said, my name is Rob Tufel, and I am the CEO of Cancer Support Community. I want to thank the Planning Commission for the opportunity to present our plans this evening. I'm going to start just a little by giving you some background about the Cancer Support Community. So we can't really start about talking about health without talking about the pandemic this year, which has really shown the need to expand and provide support services in our healthcare system. And not just during the pandemic, as noted by the National Cancer Institute, but also following the pandemic. Once it's over, there'll be a continuing impact, as noted by McKinsey. These sources, lots of different sources in the business and healthcare community that identify that we will need to step up to provide more services. And we know that healthcare is more than medical care. Anybody who's been through an illness knows this. An established body of research has shown that addressing all the ways that someone is impacted by a cancer diagnosis, whether it's mental health or financial health, physical environment, spiritual health, that's really vital to the cancer patient and their family, and really the way we provide complete cancer care and provide complete health. And that's where the Cancer Support Community comes in. For over 30 years, we've been providing free support services to cancer patients and their families. We offer things like counseling, support groups, exercise, nutrition, patient education programs. And we've been providing these services in an office building in Walnut Creek. But with a donation of the land in Lafayette, we now have the opportunity to create a community center in a beautiful natural environment, if you've seen the space, that can really enhance the health of cancer patients and their families. And why this space? Well, we know that research has shown that being in nature can actually improve your health. It can reduce things like anxiety, stress, physical pain. And I think this pandemic year has really shown all of us the need and the importance of providing support services in the community. And as I mentioned, this need will not go away once the pandemic is over. This is an opportunity for the city of Lafayette to respond in a positive way to the impact of the pandemic by expanding services for those in need. I think now is the time we can really step up as a community. And having this beautiful resource center with walking paths that will be open to the public will improve the community of Lafayette, not just for people impacted by cancer, but for all residents. Tonight, you will hear in more detail about our plans to transform what is now an empty space into one that respects the natural environment, promotes healing, and also creates a vital resource that will improve the health of residents, the health of the residents of this community. So I would next like to introduce Casey Case, who will provide more detail about our plans for creating a natural and welcoming landscape. And thank you so much for this opportunity again. Casey, do you want to take it away?
Yes, please.
All right, let me stop sharing. There we go.
Okay, Scott, are you sharing our screen? Good. It's just as long as it's not me. Hi, everyone. So I'm Casey Case with Gates and Associates. And I do just want to say that it's pretty rare that as a landscape architect that we get an opportunity to work on a project that has such a holistic purpose. And it's genuinely working toward a symbiotic blending of the built and natural environment. And one of the team's goals from day one was to have a light touch on the land in regards to the development of the site, which is why on the site plan you can see so many existing trees to remain. So we're preserving as many mature oaks and trees as possible. We're trying to make sure our pathways and circulation work with the existing topography. So we're minimizing the grading and overall designing the project so it appeared to have been meant for the site as opposed to just plopped on it. So the notion of using the land to heal, as mentioned previously, was a constant anthem. And so we really held on to that when we were coming up with our design. And what you're seeing in front of you is the full site plan that shows phase 1 and phase 2. So our phase 1 is the colored portion closer to Mount Diablo. And in that portion, you can see we have parking areas available, giving us access to the building. And in the landscape, as I mentioned, we're maintaining as many existing trees as we can because it's beautiful and there's just no reason not to, and allowing an accessible path that gives connectivity down to Mount Diablo, leads up to the building, which also has some gathering spaces on the outside. So offering some play opportunities and also opportunities for people to talk outside, socialize, and creating some opportunities to be in nature, because that's really what serves us. And next, I think I had one more. Actually, I don't even think I have another image. This is it. That's it. It speaks for itself. Thanks so much. So I'll let Scott speak to the architecture portion.
Thank you. I'm Scott Thompson with Left Coast Architecture, and I want to thank Sarah, as always, for a great kind of introduction and presentation, and thank you guys for hearing our project. I think just kind of echo that we're super excited for this project and what it can bring to the community. I'm going to actually kind of take a step back maybe and look at kind of the overall context. I think you're all probably fairly familiar with where the site is. But it's kind of sandwiched between the entrance to the reservoir and then kind of the larger De Silva gates on the west side. And then kind of as you look at the general kind of layout of the site, you see that currently there is a driveway that comes in from the west. The driveway is being relocated. You can see the dots are the trees being removed. So the two dots here are the relocated driveway as it comes in because we couldn't maintain the existing connection since it was on the De Silva gates property technically. And then really the other chunk of the trees being removed is see up in the kind of the upper portion, and that's the building site. And so when we kind of went out to the site and really looked at where the building should be located, we kind of picked that location because it's nestled in the trees. It's screened from, the Mount Diablo, which will be good for kind of visibility from the street, as well as the occupants and clients coming to the project. So quick overview, kind of to get bearings set. As we started to look at architectural kind of design of the project, we knew that we wanted to really kind of step the project with the contours and kind of, blend it to the hillside. So you actually see the stepping of the massing kind of following the contours, and it's really kind of nestled and pushed back into the hill to reduce the overall height, and not only kind of screen, again, the building as seen from offsite, but also the experience from people while they're in the building. Architecturally, you see we're kind of doing, butterfly roof on it, and I think the intent was really kind of this uplifting, architectural party, if you will, where it's, really embracing the outside and kind of opening to the views and really inviting nature in and letting people connect to the outside. You'll see we have, a pretty warm palette of materials to really help it blend with the natural environment, woods and, kind of rusted metal panel things and stuff like that. I think just to get into sections, I think you have this, but you can see really, we tried to tuck it back into the hill. And so you can see kind of the view angles that you're not seeing the majority of the lower floor, and you're, trying to kind of keep it as low as possible. And then, visualizations. We did a series of visualizations, and they are rudimentary, but I thought I'd walk you through them because I know that you may have questions about it. The way that we do it all is we try to be as transparent as possible. So we drop our massing into Google Earth, which allows us to get as accurate as possible. So you can see general, super simple massing dropped into Google Earth that then is transposed into dropping the more accurate building into it, and then finally going to a photo simulation of what it will look like, kind of with all the landscaping and the items put in. I do have an animation that I think is really telling because it kind of shows from the street and then sweeps over. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then an animation is worth, got to be at least 10,000. So I'll share that as we go to kind of questions. And I think we have the whole team here. So hopefully we can answer anything that you guys have. I'll stop this one. And I'll go. It's not too jerky. Here we go. So if you guys have any questions, I think the team is here, unless anyone else from the team has anything else to kind of add. This is kind of panning, starting from the west and heading along that Diablo, just for reference. We don't necessarily have to watch all 3 minutes of it if it's too long, but.
You have about 10 seconds left for your 10 minutes.
Oh, perfect. We'll let it go until Sarah cuts me off. Excellent. I appreciate it, and we look forward to getting your comments and working with you guys to make this a successful project.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the applicants? I'll say applicants for this one. Commissioner Mason?
Well, Scott, since you're here, I'll ask the question. I don't know if you heard it before. This is going in as General Assembly and Education. What percentage of the building is going to have an assembly occupancy?
And is this kind of coming from an occupant load question?
Well, I think I'm fully supportive of the project. I think that they would have created it, put this in as a category. It's just that I just have problems of somebody saying, hey, we're going to put this in as General Assembly, but we're not going to design it as General Assembly. And I realize that, hey, they're planning and the CBC are two separate different things. But, you know, for the whole general public, which doesn't understand that General Assembly, you and me, doesn't mean the same thing as General Assembly to somebody else, I think is just a path I would prefer not to go down.
Yep, absolutely. So we do, I mean, in general, if you go to the packet and you look at A003, we've tried to break out the spaces based on their usage. So there's, you know, the gathering rooms, kind of the conference rooms, the yoga centers, and then really kind of the lower floor assembly room are being loaded at the assembly space. And that's, again, like you're saying, there's differences between CBC and zoning. This is more going off of for a parking calculation more than anything. But as we kind of get into the code analysis and looking at egress and stuff like that for CBC, I'm assuming that we'll be going, you know, using the similar general allocations of the spaces.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Vice Chair Radnich had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the presentation. And so this question, I don't know if it's for Ms. Case or Mr. Thompson, but in the elevations and in your video, obviously all of the trees are very, very mature because a lot of them on site already are. So but I do know you guys are planning on planting 44. So can you just tell me, like, briefly, like on the west elevation, this is sheet, sorry, pulling it up here. Sheet number, for example, A300. The trees that are shown, are those existing or are those, the ones in the background, are those existing and are the trees to scale, or are those showing of the 44 that are being planted at some point in time, that's what they're gonna look like? I feel like the ones in the foreground, like on the north elevation, are probably the new ones that are being planted, but are they roughly to scale?
Yeah. I mean, I try to do them roughly to scale. I don't do, it's not 100% for sure.
Yeah.
The largest tree you'll see on the west elevation on kind of the right-hand side is an existing tree. And we actually, it's a beautiful tree. And so we kind of actually oriented the whole yoga room to kind of open to that. So that is an existing, much larger tree than obviously anything being planted with the new planting will be. So that's an existing one.
Okay,
And then
like
the tree.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then on the north elevation on that same sheet, that they're just showing kind of schematically of what's beyond to show kind of scale of, you know, a general oak in comparison to the size of the structure.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. It looks very nice. So I wanted to make sure that that is how it would fit in with the surroundings. So thank you.
Commissioner Machio?
Yes, a question for the applicant. Where do you anticipate most of your clientele or patients coming from? Do you think it's a mixture of East Bay, west, east? Do you have a sense already? I know you have a business in Walnut Creek.
Yeah, I'll weigh in on this one. Bob Pickett, I'm the consultant for CSC, and if Rob or Libby wants to supplement what I have to say, jump in. But you know, in our traffic study, we developed a demographic of where people are coming from, and most of them are coming from points east in percentage wise. There's obviously people coming directly from the La Miranda area. As you get farther east, the numbers decline because that's a farther drive. So we're not getting a whole lot of people from through the Caldecott Tunnel. Most of them are coming from the east side of the hills. And if that's inaccurate, Rob or Libby, you guys can correct me.
Well, I'd also add, we have a satellite office in Antioch. So we do see members, we call our clients members, we do see members there as well. So that's another option. And then obviously, since the pandemic, we've been providing services virtually. So we will continue to do a hybrid model. So providing services virtually will continue as well. And traffic is usually a big obstacle to getting to the center. So that will address partially that issue as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Strong.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if you could speak, as for the architect and landscape architect, speak about the design of the parking. I appreciated the comments that were made and what I can see in the design of the facility, having a light touch on the landscape and a lot of screening. From a bird's eye view, I know there's a parking requirement, but the parking is much bigger than the building. And so I know you're trying to manage that and sinking the building down. And so if you could just sort of talk through what you've had in mind and the things that you've done to try to minimize the impact, the visual impact of the parking and stormwater.
Absolutely. I'll go first, and then Casey, if you have anything to add, please chime in, or anyone else. I think the parking obviously is a necessary evil with any project. And, there's a lot of, you're kind of juggling a lot of things of trying to reduce, keep impervious materials to a minimum, trying to make it comply with fire truck access and, how long they're willing to drive and turn around. So there's a lot of kind of balls in the air that you're juggling when it comes to the parking. I think in general, we try to, again, kind of tuck it back, also knowing that there are going to be cars parked pointing towards Mount Diablo. We proposed screening and stuff to block any of the headlights, so you're not getting kind of the light pollution out from those spaces. And then I'd have to look, I think that we are proposing impervious surfaces as well. I apologize, it's been a while since we submitted this, so I can go back.
I can answer that. The parking lot is all currently proposed to be impervious surfaces. And we kind of explored pervious surfaces, but we were able to satisfy the stormwater treatment satisfactorily on the site with our detention basin, which is at the north end of the property. So in order to be responsible to our budget, we maintained all impervious surfaces. And we're open to exploring that, but we satisfied the stormwater treatment requirements without doing that. So that's how we ended up with what we have.
And we terraced it, as I think you even mentioned in your question, to try to respect the existing grades that are happening, to try to minimize how much we're removing trees and reshaping the land. So that allowed the terracing to be the more appropriate solution. And we had to strategize access for that as well. And so that was it ended up creating some little outdoor opportunities that I think were a nice positive result of that site layout.
Okay, so currently the material in the budget is impervious asphalt. I noticed there was an image, I think, on the architect's website that showed like sort of a pavers that continued into the plaza area, but that's not the current selection.
Well, I think the pavers in the plaza area is kind of the fire department turnaround. That's right. And in reality, the fire department has said we can't use it for a plaza. We can't put furniture out there. So it's more of just our entry walkway. And I believe just for a decorative standpoint, we'd be putting pavers in there, but that's not a driving surface other than for fire department emergency.
Okay.
Yeah, the plaza at the entry to the building, we are proposing a concrete paving right now.
Okay. And then my other question was about the accessible pathway from the right-of-way. Has that already been worked out in detail so that it will all work? I know you're having to climb quite a bit.
Ideally, I mean, in detail, we don't have the specific grades and spot elevations laid out, but and ideally, knowing the where we are when we're at the sidewalk and to where we need to get for the building, we have the run and the rise sorted with the length of our ramp as we're showing. Not ramp, sorry, walk, non-ramp.
Okay, thank you.
I will add, I think the civils looked at it and I think it's been worked out to do it. We've gone back and forth on when we were designing that of, is it at grade, is it not? And we kind of came up with this boardwalk concept because it was a little bit lighter touch on the site, but allowed us a little bit less kind of grading and cutting into the hillside to achieve kind of the 8% max for the ramp.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners?
Could I weigh in? There was a couple of questions raised by commissioners during your discussion with Sarah. Could I offer some answers to those?
Please.
Okay. So the Commissioner Maggio questioned the timeline of the project and what happened between the earlier hearings and now. Basically it's a major design project, and we did a lot of work trying to optimize the design that we're presenting to you tonight, both from the standpoint of dealing with the visibility of the site, being sensitive to the nature that's there, and working on towards a budget of a nonprofit organization. So there was a lot of design time involved in this, and financial evaluations. Can we afford to do this? And so that just takes time, and that's where our time was spent. Another question that was asked had to do with the TDM plan and construction traffic versus operational traffic. And the TDM program that's mentioned, I think based on the question that was raised, that we're talking about is the operational TDM program. So dealing with the employees that are coming and going from the site, and that's the reduction of the 16 trips to 10 trips, and the possible mitigation measures that are explored or presented in the environmental review are basically a menu for us that we can go through, and in evaluation, there are some very simple measures that we can undertake from that menu that will allow us to achieve the level of mitigation that's been suggested as appropriate mitigation for traffic on this project. So basically the process is that we would draft a TDM program that is designed to achieve the goals of the mitigation. And then I think the plan calls for, the proposed mitigation measure calls for a review by the city staff after 3 years. During that 3 years, we would be required to keep logs of our employee traffic, so in and out, and then we would go submit that to the city staff in 3 years for their review, and presumably we will have satisfied the requirement. If we failed to do that, then the city staff has the authority to require us to implement additional mitigation measures to achieve that over another period. In looking at the required mitigation, understanding our own operation, we're really confident we can achieve that. Simply people working at home 1 day a week. If we do that 1 day a week, that's a 20% reduction in our traffic right there. If we get one carpool every couple of days, that's another 5% or so. So achieving the recommended level of mitigation, we think, is going to be very easy, choosing from the recommended items, and we can actually, come up with something else. When we come back to you with, after we've gone through DRC and the Transportation Circulation Commission, we'll probably be able to present you with a little more details on our thinking. Plus, you'll also have the benefit of the input from your Transportation and Circulation Commission. So I think we'll be able to tackle that one fairly easily. Let's see. There was another question. Oh, the question about where the people are coming from. Are they going to come from downtown Lafayette, from the east on Mount Diablo Boulevard? The traffic report suggests that the heaviest level of traffic is coming from the downtown area towards the building, traveling west, taking the Central Lafayette exit off the freeway. And I mean, I've done this many times. You get on Deer Hill Road, you go over to Happy Valley, and then you hit Mount Diablo and you go a couple of miles and you're at the site. Of course, the alternative is to go to Ocolonus Road and come back the other way. And that's going to be a function of, traffic. People coming here who used to go in there, they're going to take the easiest route. My assessment, my opinion, this is just anecdotally, I think that the percentages will be a little more balanced than the traffic report represents. But we have to deal with the traffic report as the traffic experts analyzed it. And again, with that analysis, we are able to satisfy mitigation requirements. Let's see, I think Scott addressed Mr. Mason's question about calling it an assembly. That may be just a simple matter of the nomenclature, the terminology we use, so the public isn't confused and how that might relate to the design and use of the building. So I think we can clarify that when we come back. So I think I addressed some of the questions that were raised by commissioners during the staff discussion. And if there's if I raised any other questions, confused anybody, go ahead and ask.
All right, actually, now not because of that, I actually have my own set of questions for different people. So Scott, question. So from the 3D view that we just saw, the great animation, is there a plan to have a retaining wall all the way across the property on Mount Diablo based on what we just saw in the animation?
No, it's kind of in chunks. And if you look at the grading sheet, and I can pull it up if you want to see, it's around kind of where the ramp starts coming up, and then a little bit more as the sidewalk comes in. As we had to widen the sidewalk, I think it was required that we retain some of the dirt. So you can see it's probably, I want to say roughly 50% of the frontage, and it's 1 to 2 feet generally. I don't know if it's helpful for me to share for the audience too. So you can see it's basically this portion and then kind of around the entrance to here, kind of to get some of the utilities to fit, and then just the way the grade kind of spills into the sidewalk as we widen to match kind of what's happening down towards the other side.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to jump around a little bit here. Mr. Tufel, I had a couple of questions with respect to, is this going to be open to the public? I know there's a public walkway that people can access. Are people going to be able to get onto the property, walk around, look at nature? I'm just a general question.
Yeah, well, the plan is to when we're operating. Yes, the plan would be that the public can come and use the paths and walk around there and explore the area, even if they're not directly using our sites. We want it to be a site that's open to the community as well.
Great. And then I was a little confused about office or normal hours, because I saw something where it was normal business hours, but then I saw 8 to 7. So when will it be open? I know it's not on Sunday, it's Monday through Saturday. So what are the opening hours for CSC?
So we have our standard hours are 9 to 5, but we do have programs in the evenings. We do have programs on Saturdays as well. So the building will be used sometimes after the 5 o'clock hour. But the general office hours when the main staff is there is from 9 to 5.
And when the main staff isn't there, the property is not the property, but the building is closed down. People aren't going to be in there if the staff isn't there.
If there's a program, there may be a facilitator there leading a support group or leading a program, but the entire, like the development staff would not be there after 5 unless they have a program, that type of thing. So it would not, the full staff would not be there. The people who need to be there would be there.
Great. And then one follow-up in terms of the number of members who would visit. I know you're basing it on 2019 numbers. Obviously 2020, we can hopefully at some point forget about it, as awful as it was. Do you expect there to be an increase in terms of members, Scott? And by the way, I don't mean hopefully no additional people getting cancer, but I'm trying to be very careful on this question. With moving it to Lafayette versus being on the border of Walnut Creek and Pleasant Hill, do you see there being additional people coming to visit the site?
We would anticipate that there would be additional people visiting this site because it's such a beautiful place to come to. It's very, very appealing. I will add, though, some of that increased participation will be mitigated by the fact that we'll be doing programs virtually, and we haven't been doing that in the past. So it is hard to say that we'll have an increase. How many of those people will be coming in person as opposed to past years is pretty much, it's hard to estimate that now. But in 2019, we had 2,200 family members and cancer patients come. I would anticipate at least that many would come to this site as well.
Thank you. I think that's all I had at the moment, so I'll just open up the floor one more time. Any other questions for the applicants? There we go. You're up.
Your question about the site being open to the public made me want to ask, do you foresee your programs connecting to the reservoir in any way or across the street to the community garden?
That's a great question. To the reservoir, we have a fence there. There would not be, as the plan is now, not to have access to the reservoir from our site. But we actually have talked to the community garden. Libby actually can give more. I'm fairly new. I just started in June. Libby can give more information. But we plan to have a garden there. We'd love to do stuff with the community garden. I don't know, Libby, do you want to give more insight into those conversations?
Sure. Hi, I'm Libby Eppinga, work with Cancer Support Community. I'm the director of donor support and working on this capital campaign for the past 3 years. So we have made great friends with all of those surrounding this property, including the Lafayette Gardens. We have taken a number of people on property tours for the past couple of years. Everyone is very open to this being a community resource and seeing it open to the Lafayette Reservoir. So that is something that we would like to determine if that's a good plan or if it's better to just maintain it as the campus that it's intended to be. So for now, it's something that people would really like to see, and I think a lot of people would benefit from.
Okay, thank you. And what I was sort of thinking too is how much connection your programs would have either across the street or next door, even access along the sidewalk, along the right of way, which would probably, I think it'd be helpful to have an idea of just pedestrian traffic numbers and when this goes to the Transportation and Circulation Commission so that they can, think about people crossing the street and things like that.
Let me just add that one of the longer range plans is to have a vegetable garden or some kind of garden on site. So I think there's just kind of a natural integration or coordination between the garden across the street and this. It is problematic. We aren't going to want pedestrian traffic crossing Mount Diablo Boulevard. There are crosswalks, a little bit of ways from this that people could do that, but I don't think we certainly aren't going to do anything that would encourage it, and we actually probably discourage it because it's just problematic from a safety standpoint. So we're expecting that whatever we develop and however we integrate with them, that would be independent of the operation of the facility. So we wouldn't take a class of people, for instance, and have them walk across the street to the community garden. That's just, that would not be a good thing to do, and it wouldn't be any programming we would be doing. But there's just a natural connection. If we have a garden, they have a garden. It might be that they have a class at our site someday, and another day we have a class at their site. So people would just go straight to their site and not come to our site across the street. It just that's a more sensible way to operate. And I think just from a safety standpoint, we would naturally want to do that.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Radnich?
A question for Mr. Pickett. What's the estimated time frame for the phase 2 if that ends up happening?
Well, ideally, phase 2 would actually happen concurrently. It's phased because of budgeting. There are costs associated with the second phase, and it's maybe 10 or a little more % of the overall budget if we were to do it concurrently. So we phased it in order to allow accommodation of, the ability to raise funds to build the thing. Our perfect world would be that we would raise enough funds to build it all at once. We'd have the garden built up the hill. We'd have a little playground constructed off to the side of the building. So it's a matter of financing.
Okay, and so the grading numbers and stuff, does that account for phase 2 as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the grading, I think, the phase 2 grading is fairly minimal. We've actually made some changes, for instance, to the playground area that cut the grading by well over 50%. And that's budget driven. But the grading with required, like the trail that goes up the hill, that's already there. Much of it is already there. It was a construction road, I think, that East Bay Mud used to go up and build the water tank on the hill. That's the gravel road you see in the aerial photos. So a lot of the grading for the second element of the construction is very, very minimal. But when you have equipment on the site, you'd be doing some of the dressing up so that it's very easy to complete phase 2 if it happens at a later date.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, last go around. Any more questions for the applicants? All right, looks like it's time for public comment.
Great, so if you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen or *9 if you're calling in. I'll call you in order, and you have 3 minutes. And Chair Farzan, I'll just give you a little 3 when time is close.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I'm not trying to be rude to anybody. I'm expecting we're going to have several people speaking on this. So when I tell you to please wind it down, it's just to give everybody a shot at doing this. So don't take any offense.
All right, Diane, you are in the meeting if you'd like to unmute and make your comment.
Hi, good evening, and thank you. My name's Diane Barbera. I have been in Lafayette since 1984. I live over in the Acalanes Valley, very close to where this proposed project is. My husband, Richard Delaney, has been a builder in this community for over 30 years. On August 17th, 2019, Rich and I sat at UCSF where a perfectly healthy man with no history of any health concerns was given a death sentence. Glioblastoma, multiform, fast-growing, also known as incurable brain cancer. There was nothing to help us to navigate this devastating diagnosis. We were both in shock and thought, how could this happen? There were no answers, just a regimen of protocols that seemed like cookie-cutter procedures for everyone with this diagnosis. The tumor was small and we had found it early, but it didn't matter how big or small, the end result was always the same for everyone with glioblastoma. The bottom line was how much time we would have together and how we would spend this valuable time. Through the radiation doctors at John Muir, we learned of the cancer support community. UCSF had offered a social worker, but they didn't have any programs for cancer patients. So they had heard about CSC and recommended them as well because they didn't have that support system. I picked up a calendar and started to look at the many activities: cooking for cancer, yoga, exercise classes, most importantly, the support groups. And I noticed that there were volunteers from Orinda and Lafayette who were coordinating the events at CSC, many of them former cancer patients themselves. We signed up and enrolled in classes, and by January, Rich was in a cancer support group on Monday nights, and I was in the caregiver group next door. That initial class changed our lives. Every Monday night, we would drive to Walnut Creek, enjoying the other cohorts and sharing and talking about our feelings and our different types of medications and protocols. I would sit in my caregiver class, and we were all crying and stressed. And all of the cancer patients next door, many of them that had the same death sentence, were laughing and talking to each other and supporting each other. I was going to lose the man I loved and had to face that reality, but there was no one to help me to face this reality but the cancer support community. I thought, what is wrong with this picture? But then I realized that laughter was the best medicine, and that laughter coming from that room made us all feel better too. They also had a special support group for glioblastoma patients and their caregivers. Another invaluable group, a group of individuals all sharing the same diagnosis. Finally, we could walk the walk and the journey with people who were going through the exact same devastating condition that we were. We had the help and support of medical centers, but they could not provide the service of support and help with our mental health. The help that we received was life-saving, and for us to deal with this devastating news, and now my devastating loss. Rich died in January, and now I'm in their support group, their grief group. And that's because they have the people who know how to help us. It's fortunate enough to have a network that they say, I am here for you. But the key unsaid part of that sentence is for whatever you need. Not every person is going to be the right person to help you navigate your pain. As best as you can decipher how you can lean on these individuals based on what we excel at. The pal can always run and get you wine. The cousin will go for a run with you, but you need to clear your head. And the most comfortable and people for your shoulder to cry on are the people that is called the cancer support community. I fully support this building, and I hope that we will build this. Building CSC in our backyard is the right thing to do for so many people, and it needs to be in our backyard. During the past year of COVID, imagine having 18 months to live, can't go to movies, can't go to dinner. All we could do was go to our Zoom meetings at Cancer Support Community and talk to people about what we were experiencing. It's certainly not dinner conversation with your friends. In going through these meetings, the services was invaluable. And I've now sat in 3 different groups, and there are many from Lafayette, Orinda, Moraga, Pleasant Hill, Walnut Creek. But it's community, and we all felt the community. And it's in our backyard, and we have the most beautiful building being built. And I think we as a community need to embrace this and help others who are facing this devastating disease. At one point, everybody seems to have someone or know someone who has cancer. And we need to be the help and provide the space for this community to do their work. This is a life-giving service. I can't even begin to express how important this is for so many people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry about your loss.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kathy Merchant. Kathy, you're in the meeting. Go ahead.
Hi. Finished dinner in the nick of time. So in how many towns of under 25,000 population can you drive from one end to another and pass one premier, beautifully designed, strategically located, community enriching facility after another and still feel the sense of being nestled among rolling green hills? From Orchard Nursery to Oakwood, past a magnificent reservoir and the Lafayette Community Garden, to the Veterans Hall, then the elegant Lafayette Library and Learning Center, soon a state-of-the-art Las Trampas campus, and exit beyond the first-class star-rated Lafayette Park Hotel. Now we have an opportunity to add the cancer support community, tucked among oak trees, with a meditation retreat, contemplative garden, and offering 100% free programs, invaluable to families whose lives have been touched in some way by cancer. People opposed Oakwood because of traffic, which never became an issue. Let's not throw up this barrier as an obstacle to CSC. It's almost impossible to meet someone, as Diane said, who does not know a family or a friend impacted by this disease. Speaking personally, I know an extraordinary number of my extended family have experienced cancer. Some survived, others did not. But not one member, including myself, had a resource to turn to like CSC, right here within reach. Adding the cancer support community to this extraordinary menu of community serving and enhancing resources is something I'm proud to endorse. Not emotionally, but because I think it's also the best use of this property, otherwise vulnerable to housing. Lafayette is changing, yes, but we may not be the sleepy country hamlet. Whoops, sorry. I think hold on one second. I just lost you on the screen here. Oops. Okay. Lafayette is changing, yes. We may not be the sleepy country hamlet of the 1950s and 70s, but what is life but change? What is extraordinary to me is that Lafayette, host to these major community institutions, with the innovation of restaurant parklets lining the main boulevard now as if we were in Paris, increasingly full to capacity as we gather again as a community. And yes, with a plethora of state mandated housing strategically placed in the downtown corridor. With all this change, Lafayette has preserved the beauty of its surrounding green hills, its walking and biking expanded opportunities. We have transitioned from that sleepy hamlet to a vibrant town with critical educational, health, and community building gathering places, right in the heart of our community. Cancer support community would be a welcome addition to this always innovating town. Thank you.
Thank you. We should have you write the PR for the city, though.
I just want to point out that was a perfect 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm being serious. Somebody call Miss Merchant up after this.
I know you're very articulate too. I remember all the campaigns and how great you were. And I know you're right next to the property. So this means a lot to you and to our community, to everybody. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, who's up?
David Bone is in the meeting. If you'd like to unmute, go ahead and make your comments.
Here we go.
My name is David Bonney.
There we go.
Yeah. My name is David Bonney, and I'm another long-term resident of Lafayette since 1976. I live on Old Johns Hill Road. I've seen a lot of changes, as Kathy was responding to there a moment ago, in our community, and I think most all of them have been for the better. That's for the wisdom, I think, of the Planning Commission, yours, and in the past, as well as the Design Review Commission. this new building that's proposed to the cancer support community certainly falls into the category of improving, I believe, the west entrance to Lafayette, and provides a much needed service. I'm going to keep this really short, so I know you've got a lot of people to listen to. On a personal note, 14 years ago, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. I remember vividly the day my doctor told me my chances of living were not terrific. And I was one of the fortunate people that had a loving family, a lot of friends that were supported me, and at the time, a wonderful group of employees that gave me support. But you know, it is not the same thing, as great as that is being able to go to something like the cancer support community and sit with people that are having the same fears, the same pain, the same doubts about their future, as it is people that, while sympathetic, aren't sharing in the same experiences that you are. So I urge your support of this wonderful new project, and hopefully it will come to fruition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we're happy you're healthy. Yes, so am I.
Excellent. Is in the meeting now. Go ahead and make your comment. And if someone is watching on YouTube, why there's some feedback happening. Hi, Dana, go ahead.
So sorry, it kind of got garbled. I didn't realize you were calling on me. Hello, good evening. Nice to see you all. I started my relationship with CSC in April 2 years ago when I got diagnosed with cancer. I continued my relationship through my treatment, the initial diagnosis, the treatment, and as I'm post-treatment now, I continue with them. I also, while I was on chemo, ended up substitute teaching yoga. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I was told that I was the healthiest that I had ever been. And I was teaching yoga full time. I was the manager of a yoga studio. So as you can imagine, being told that and then being told that you're diagnosed with cancer was absolutely, as people have said here, and as I know that you know, if you've been touched by cancer in any way, it is absolutely devastating, shocking, depressing, anxiety-ridden. You feel lost and you feel alone. I had a huge community of support of my own. I can't even count how many people were supporting me, but my cancer diagnosis made me feel like I was completely alone and isolated. I immediately, upon diagnosis, I think it was the same day that I my friend of mine kind of went public on Facebook to try to help me, and I was not happy about that. But what came out of that was 5 people in the same day texted me to say, have you heard of Cancer Support Community? And I hadn't, and I was surprised because I was very involved in the community. I immediately contacted them. Before my surgery, before my treatment, I was able to go to the facility. When I walked in, I immediately felt like I was home. It wasn't because of the space, it was because of the people. The people there, the volunteers there who have experienced cancer in some way, and the staff, although they do business and they are so amazing at it, they are also the most caring, kind, generous, supportive people I think that I have ever met. As I continued my relationship and attendance at CSC, I did everything I possibly could. I wanted to get better. I was desperate to get better. I was desperate to try to live. So was my family, desperate to try to figure out how to help me. And CSC offering, as has been said, the caregivers support is invaluable. One of the things I thought when I got diagnosed was, I can't afford to have cancer. I was working a job that I didn't have disability or any kind of benefits. I luckily had good medical, but that was it. So as I walked in and found out about CSC, I was thinking, I can't afford this. There's no way. When I saw the calendar and all of the things that have been described here that support you physically, emotionally, spiritually, I thought, oh my God, this is the most amazing place. This is incredible. And I know I can't afford it. And I found out that it was free. Since then, there was a time for many, many, many months that I was attending 10 to 15 things at CSC a month. So support groups, I was in 4 of them. I was attending yoga classes, Pilates classes, meditation, the craft stuff, the art stuff, the workshops, all of the information. So I see the 3 minutes. I could go on and on about CSC, but the one thing I do want to finish with is that when I'm asked about CSC, I'm their #1 cheerleader. I am happy to do anything I can to support CSC in any way, and I have. I co-chaired the fundraiser last year, and I'm still involved in that. But the space, I want to just mention the space. When you are afflicted with cancer, all you want to do is heal, and you want to be in a healing place. And this is the first time tonight that I'm seeing the plans and the outdoors and all those things. And I just thought, oh my gosh, because one of the relief pieces of CSC is that you can go and just be. It's a place where you don't have to explain how you're feeling. You don't have to even talk and no one asks you any questions. You can just simply be. Instead of being the cancer patient, you are advocating for yourself, and people are just there to just simply be. And when I see this space, I was thinking how incredible it would be to just be able to be outdoors, to meet with my friends. Since I've been at CSC, I have so many friends that are lifelong friends now, and we get together all of the time, and just to be able to go and sit with somebody. And I know people who have not been able to go to CSC who've had cancer because they were too sick and too tired to sign up. But if I could have driven them to a site like this and just taken them under a tree and sat with them and hold their hand, they may have then had the energy to take advantage of the services that CSC provides. So what an incredible plan, what an incredible organization. Lafayette would be lucky to have them. I lived in Lafayette for about 8 years myself. I know the space well. So I think it would be invaluable to have CSC in the Lafayette community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, so can you just one sec? Sorry, Sarah. So I was going to say, so let's try to, I know it's difficult. Let's try to stick to the 3 minutes, because trust me, I do not want to be the one interrupting tonight. just to be clear here, I do not want to cut anybody off here. Obviously, these are very serious moments. Some of them very happy moments, thank goodness. Some of them not. And I don't want to cut anybody off. I really don't. But there are lots of people who want to speak. So let's try as hard as we can to try to hit that 3 minute mark. Thank you.
Troy Feddersen, you are in the meeting if you'd like to unmute and make your comments.
Thank you. Let me start my video. Glory. I wanted to announce myself that I am at 12 White Oak Drive in Lafayette. Sorry for the blurry video. And I'm also president of the Ocklawahamie Valley Homeowners Association. And we've been following the project pretty closely over the 5 years since we learned about it. And I know, I don't know if this was mentioned earlier in the staff report, but I think it's helpful to understand this is an initial session on this complex project. And I know that there's a staff recommendation to have this be referred to other commissions as appropriate for transportation circulation design review, but also particularly to put up story polls. One thing that I'm struggling with myself is visualizing the and as part of Ocklawahamie Valley Homeowners Association, we did send a letter to the Planning Commission in 2017 after we did a survey of the about 440 homes in the western part of Lafayette, of which we got a 20% response. And I had feedback from those supportive of the project that we did a pretty good job of being good about not really having opinion, because we knew this was controversial and we wanted to really get a sentiment on it. We saw that about 80% were against any type of a building there that would be commercial in nature. 15% or so wanted cancer support community specifically. And I just wanted to point out that you'll have to consider as a planning commission, really the use permit thing. That's not presumptive. This is a very unique property. It is low density LR10 for a reason, surrounded by open space. A lot of people don't even realize it's not already part of East Bay MUD. And the things to consider are how much is cancer support community as an organization that we all support, and you'll hear a lot more stories, I'm sure, how much does that organization weigh specifically versus if it were one particular type of a church or another? And then second, what is the amount of impact that's allowed? But when we say that most of the property is unimpacted, well, it's 12,000 more square feet. What if it was 20,000? It's going to be somewhat screened, not completely screened. So given the unique nature of the property, it's going to be a really huge decision to grapple with on whether a use permit should be granted. I just don't think that should be precluded, that it's a forgiven conclusion. They can apply for one, that it's given that they should get one on this unique property. It's not so much that it's next to the Ocklawahamie Valley Homeowners Association because of the distance there, but I think anybody in Lafayette and those that visit the Lafayette Reservoir, I would hate for them to be surprised by a commercial building. I do think they've been Cancer Support Community. We've been involved with them. I've met with them in January. A very good job of doing what they can to make it fit with the land. And the question is, what are these boundaries when you grapple with what would you accept on this property if it were a different applicant or if it were bigger or smaller? And then once the use permit is decided and we see story polls up, and I know that the report that was given out, I believe for the CEQA report, we'll have a review period that goes through May 3rd as well. So I know there won't be a decision on this real soon, and this will go, but it's something to think about, and I would love to see the story polls go up so that we can definitely make sure the community weighs in on this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter Dudley, you are in the meeting if you'd like to unmute and make your comment.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me to speak and be here. My name is Peter Dudley. I am on staff with Cancer Support Community. I'm Chief Development Officer. I'm also a 35-year resident of East Bay, and I've lived in Walnut Creek most of that time. Both my kids grew up and went through Northgate. I hope you won't hold that against me. I obviously can't speak as a Lafayette resident like Kathy and others here have tonight and will. And although I've lost numerous family members to cancer over the years, I'm not here to speak about as eloquently as some of our members that are here tonight. And you may think that I'm supporting this project because I'm a CSC staff member, but the truth is actually the other way around. I joined CSC less than 3 years ago, and in part because I was really captured by the vision of this project, as well as, of course, the mission of the organization. I wanted to be part of this, helping more people throughout our region and really being part of a project that I think the entire region can be super proud of in the long term. And, we're not putting up a building to sell a building. We're not putting up a concert hall or a stadium or a big box retail store. I don't have anything against those things, but I wouldn't show up to a city meeting to speak in favor of them either. It would be something that just wouldn't really be on my radar. What we're trying to do is make cancer easier for many families, like you've heard tonight, you'll be hearing tonight. And this project will help us do that better for more people. And I think that's a really noble cause, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And I just wanted to say that, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Carol Yates, you're in the meeting. If you'd like to unmute and make your comment.
Unmute. Okay. I'm not sure where my, I was going to read it live, but I don't know what to do about this. Can I get my, change that picture?
If you go to the bottom left where the video symbol is, you should be able to start your video there. But we can hear you if you'd like to.
Well, okay, I better just read in, okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Carol Yates. I live at 3279 Mount Diablo Court. As a resident of Lafayette for over 40 years, I'm very much interested in maintaining the calm peace that is felt when one enters this beautiful city. Whether traveling from the east or west, the welcoming effect of the gentle sloping hills is recuperative for anyone. Whether green or gold, a breath of fresh air emanates from the unique environment. I have a stake in Lafayette. My daughter has moved back with her family. I have grandchildren attending Lafayette schools. I also have a stake in the cancer support community, as I have recently been a cancer patient. You have heard and will hear many reasons why CSC is vital to the healing and survival of those randomly chosen by the universe to be stricken with the nearly unbearable scourge that thrashes and trashes human life. I'm here to connect the beauty of our green and golden hills that create the peaceful environment we enjoy with the architectural design that fits harmoniously into our setting. Let me address the fears from the Acalanes Valley HOA, the 80% of those people that interrupt the easy welcoming of the cancer support community to the property it owns in Lafayette. First, the number of cars on the property will be minuscule compared to the typical numbers streaming through the highways and streets of our city. The largest group I've seen in the evening was for a comedy night every other month. My Pilates class has had anywhere from 6 to 15 people. A simultaneous class could have 15 to 25 participants. The attendees are grateful beyond belief. The roads they travel will not change the highways or the roads of the city. One household alone could have that many cars for a party. One more consideration are the state mandates for housing in our city. It is my understanding that there is a plan for 5-story buildings to hold 3,750 units with an eye to the end of town where the CSC would construct its center designed to flow with the landscape and perhaps present a more viable land use. Lafayette has the healing power and the opportunity to offer its advantages to a vulnerable population. Please welcome the cancer support community to Lafayette. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yates. And I can say I'm not aware of a 3,700 plus unit building that's being built in Lafayette as we speak, just so nobody in the audience freaks out about that.
Oh, well, I think I heard that. I did this. I know I'm on the Lafayette Preparedness, the Emergency Preparedness Commission, and I had talked with my fellow commissioner, who is the president of Acalanes Valley HOA.
Thanks, Carol. I just let in Don Jenkins, if you'd like to unmute yourself, and then followed by Conrad Brees.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Don Jenkins. I live at 9 Cabernet Court, Lafayette, California. I have lived here for the last 50 years. I am also a member of, or yes, I think I am a paid member of the Acalanes Homeowners Association. And I respectfully dispute my esteemed friend and Rotarian, Mr. Feddersen, about the review that he presented some years ago. I don't think that it is as severe the other way as he tried to point it. But I have some comments that I would like to share with you. And so let me just begin. Our family has lived in Lafayette since 1970. My long history with CSC started with our family's multiple cancer experiences in 1997, when my wife was diagnosed with cancer, my daughter was diagnosed with cancer, and my mother-in-law was dying of throat cancer. I did not know what in the world to be doing, and Cancer Support Community, when they were in Walnut Creek, downtown in a small office and just getting started, gave us, our family, this kind of support we needed. Recently, I came upon the idea of this whole project getting started again about 3 years ago with Jim Boakland, and became enamored with the idea that this is a real possibility to go ahead. And so I have been very much a part of this project ever since that very beginning. I think as I look at this whole concept of our wonderful city, I kind of piggyback on what Kathy Merchant has talked about. And I think back to what makes this community the special place it is. And in talking with Teresa Geringer this afternoon, I found out that the Lafayette Methodist Church, which is one of the original things that helped set the standard for Lafayette, was started in 1855. We have had things that help continue to grow the community. The Now Theater was a Grange Hall at one time that was started in the 1920s. That changed the pattern of how our community worked together. We certainly have had a wonderful Veterans Hall that has ultimately got demolished and replaced with a more wonderful library. I was involved with the whole development of the Oakwood as it grew, and all the concerns that our homeowners association had that this was going to be the death of Lafayette. Fortunately or unfortunately, most of those people in Ockalani's Homeowners Association, if they've chosen to, are now members of Oakwood. We have developed the opening. I was here with the opening of the Lafayette Reservoir, and that certainly has been a magnificent place for us to grow as a community. And then the Veterans Hall, the idea of continuing to expand and develop. I think this is really what makes our community special. Now, at the same time, I think that we do have to be aware of the simple fact that Lafayette has been asked to set and identify sites for 2,114 residential units here in the next few years. And although I don't and hope, it's my hope for certainly as a Ockalani's Homeowners Association or Ockalani's homeowner, that we don't have to give up this open space at the western end of town. But my thinking is that at this point, if we have to make changes because of some of the mandates from the state, that I would love our cancer support community to be the template for what we see develop in the western part of this city. It's a wonderful luxury, and I do not wish that anything happens to this end. But I think that if it does, I would like to see the cancer support space be the template for what comes next at this end of town. So it's with great affection that I really do hope that this project can go forward. I do believe that the people in this end of town and I know the community, and as our community grows, will find the value of the cancer support community every bit as significant as what it has been for my life and for all the other people that have spoken here this evening and who may come to speak. It is a viable, real, worthwhile project, and it is free to all concerned. And we are here to help as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Conrad Brees, you are in the meeting if you'd like to unmute and make your comments, followed by Anna George.
Thank you. I just figured out how to unmute. Am I unmuted now?
Yep,
you are.
Well, there's nothing that comes up until somebody tells you to unmute. It does not look like a Zoom screen. Good evening, members of the Lafayette Planning Commission. My name is Conrad Brees. My wife, Joan Brees, and I have lived in Lafayette since 1984 at 3790 Quail Ridge Road. I currently serve as Vice Chair of the Lafayette Senior Services Commission and have been a commissioner since 2016. I also currently serve as President of the Rotary Club of La Miranda Sunrise in Lafayette. My wife and I are also members of the Lafayette Community Council, which supports the cancer community. Prior to my retirement in November 2017, I practiced as a real estate lawyer in San Francisco for 45 years. Some years ago, when the Oakwood Health Club was on the development screen, I appeared to hoots and hollers opposing me when Oakwood was sought to be developed. Some of the same people from the Ocalanos Homeowners Association were there that evening. Now they belong to the club. The club turned out to be a significant amenity, and I caution you not to listen to hoots and screams opposing this project. This is a tasteful, well-developed, laid out project. It is much in need in this community. And I am supporting the application of the cancer community develop the Lafayette site as requested. Although neither my immediate family nor my extended family have experienced the scourge of cancer, we know many friends who have. Some very good friends have received the significant support of the Cancer Support Committee, as people have alluded to tonight, at no cost at the present Walnut Creek location of the Cancer Support Community. The proposed facilities in Lafayette, which the Cancer Support Community seeks consent here to build, will provide modern, aesthetic, and functional indoor facilities, as well as beautiful outdoor landscape facilities, all of which promote a healthy and non-stressful atmosphere, which will significantly and aid in the successful recovery from cancer for the patients. Please approve this project. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Brees.
Excellent. Just let Anna George in, and she will be followed by Beth McClelland. And I think you're unmuted if you'd like to make your comment.
Okay, thank you very much, all of you. I don't know why my picture's not up there. There we go. Thank you all for giving this project such a thorough good look. I'm Anna George. My business address is in Lafayette, as is my husband's, where we both lived for quite a long time. We have 3 daughters, a son, and a puppy that were raised there. And now one daughter lives there with her husband and a grandson and an embryo, we just found out. So, I am loath to say it, cancer is part of our lives, increasingly. Cancer touches far too many families, and what happens with a diagnosis? I think most cancer victims would say that when we discover cancer, we are scared out of our wits. We find ourselves grossly underinformed and feel ineffably isolated. Cancer Support Community saved me from the worst degrees of each of those stressful trials. Yes, we have to deal with cancer, cope with cancer, live with cancer, and we do so surviving as patients, caregivers, and family. We also have to heal from the fear and this despair, as others have made known, and emerge from our deficit of knowledge about treatment opportunities. Throughout these ordeals, we need compassion, support, and understanding. It is truly a fight. I feel extremely fortunate I have Cancer Support Community. I found it after my surgery. Right now, I am beyond 6 years a survivor. I have healed while making indescribably valuable bonds along the pathways provided me at the center. I participate weekly in the healing power of writing. I have given back as a volunteer, offering painting classes and art projects at the center. Right now, I am learning healing skills there, which I can soon offer to members of the community at large. In some of these moments, we help each other live. In other moments, we are as present as possible alongside those who are facing the end of their lives. This is a welcoming space. You walk in, you make yourself a cup of tea, you grab an apple from the bowl, you sit where you please. I venture that there is no more valuable, useful, wonderful project for Lafayette. Cancer Support Community is a source of humanitarian pride, well organized and mindfully operated. There's no doubt we need this generous gift to us all, this place of harmony and powerful healing. In terms of impact, I hope you will help us continue sharing and learning, accumulating more healing successes like the countless ones for which we are all grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George. Glad you're feeling better.
Beth McClellan, you are in the meeting if you'd like to unmute, and next would be Ann Groden.
I was relieved to see that those unmuting and the video buttons popped up. Anyway, my name is Beth McClellan, and I have lived in Lafayette since 1997. I live on Via Alta, which is on the hillside across the freeway from where the Cancer Support Community will be. I don't remember if I said I moved here in 1997. I moved with my husband and my two boys, who are now adults out on their own. And my husband and I love it here, and we plan to stay now that we're retiring. In 2010, my life took a turn when I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. Was fortunate to learn about CSC very early in the process, and I immediately started participating in the newly diagnosed breast cancer group at CSC. My experience with cancer, CSC, and that group changed my life. It led me to focus more clearly on living a more fulfilling life. I developed such close bonds with the ladies that we still get together for breakfast monthly. We lived through some tough times together, and we understood one another in ways most people cannot relate to. In case you're not aware, participating in a support group is one of the factors that's been documented as a risk reduction for cancer recurrence. We helped each other stay the course of treatment, even when it was tough, and helped to educate one another when we had to make some very difficult decisions along the way. CSC is a wonderful place, and I have to say their current location in Walnut Creek has a few shortcomings. I remember that the group that I participated in, we met in a very small room, and very sadly, every seat was filled. So the group and the room were a bit crowded for the various programs and groups that are offered. The other thing was there's very limited outdoor space, and it's not a place to spend peaceful, quiet time in nature. This is something we all need, but it can be even more essential when dealing with a cancer diagnosis. The proposed building and property address both of those shortcomings, and I cannot think of a better location for CSC. I also cannot think of a better community to welcome to Lafayette. The CSC community is kind, generous, warm, and welcomes everyone with open arms. I strongly support this project and ask the Planning Committee members and our Lafayette community to support this project in moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Groden is in the meeting, followed by Don Tatson.
Thank you very much. Start my video for you. I'm Ann Groden. I'm a 38-year resident of Lafayette. I live not far from the site. My street, Mountain View Lane, actually connects to the rim trail of the reservoir. So I'm on the east side. I'm asking you to please approve this application. It is an ideal setting for much needed service in our community. I'm a former mayor, and I'm saying that not to influence you because it was a long time ago. But I do have a large number of acquaintances, more than most people, because of that. And I've been involved with the cancer support community and working with Libby, I think since she first started a number of years, 4 years ago. And everyone to a person that I have spoken to says this is the best use for this property and wants to see the cancer support community in our community. Our family has also made use of the services. The cancer support community has been in Walnut Creek for 25 years. It has a proven track record. It's not some new fly-by-night organization. It's been here a long time. Early, when it first began 25 years ago, my daughter had cancer at age 18. And the cancer support community gave us the most invaluable advice and helped us as she was a first-year freshman in college. Now I am a cancer patient too, and I want to let you know that this is the type of thing that we need in our community. It is so well designed, so well thought out, and they have done such a wonderful job reaching out to the community, to so many different groups, that I wanted to let you know I've been on your side making decisions, and rarely do I see an organization that has done such a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don Tatson, followed by Nick Theophanous.
Hello. So I want to thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. And I also want to thank Don Jenkins, who introduced me to the cancer support community several years ago. I've sent you a letter, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. When I moved to Lafayette some 45 years ago, one of the things I realized was that this is a relatively small city, but it had a number of particularly attractive features that you often wouldn't see in a city this size. Everything from the reservoir to the new library to the schools, et cetera. And I think that the cancer support community can be another one of those special places. I support the staff recommendation to send this on to other commissions and suggest that perhaps you direct how they focus as necessary. And having heard several applications for land use permits in my time on the city council, I think that the basis for approving one exists here. And I think that, as was suggested by one of the commissioners, or more than one of the commissioners, you can develop conditions of approval that will allay any concerns you have about that. I did in my letter mention several conditions that I think you ought to consider. And I will say, after I stepped down as on the city council in 2018, I've become a volunteer liaison for State Senator Steve Glazer to the La Marinda area. And as such, I have heard a lot more than I ever wanted to about wildfires and droughts. And so I would suggest that you, in terms of the drought issue, while there was testimony that the application could meet all of its requirements without doing any pervious paving, I would suggest that you look at where you can have pervious surfaces where possible. because that would hopefully reduce the amount of irrigation you need to do, or they need to do. Second is the state, I think, is going to adopt over time landscaping requirements that are more fire concerned than exist today, perhaps in Lafayette. And I didn't study the landscaping done by the Gates firm, which I have a great deal of respect for, to figure out how well that meshes with, for example, what the Moraga Orinda Fire District has recommended or what Orinda has done in terms of using landscaping as a way to reduce the hazard that occurs with fire. And so I suggest you ask for that. And finally, again, on the water issue, I've just in fire issue, suggest that if you move into phase 2 quickly, that there might be the need for a fire truck, unfortunately, at the amphitheater, and make sure they have a water supply up there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also a perfect 3 minutes. I expect less.
Yeah. Sarah, let's take one more and then let's take our 9 o'clock quick break for 5 minutes.
Sounds great. Nick, yeah, if you would like to tell us how to pronounce your last name, we'd love to hear it. You're in the meeting if you'd like to make your comment.
He's considering how to pronounce it himself.
It looks like you're unmuted, Nick, if you'd like to speak. Perhaps the commission would like to take the break now and we can pick up with Nick.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we, it's 8:57, at least by my clock on my computer. So why don't we go until 9:05, reconvene at 9:05, please? We'll wait on Commissioner Mason and then we'll get started again.
Sorry, here.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you. Okay, we are back officially in session. It's 9:05. Sarah, I forgot who's next.
It was Nick, however, it looked like he dropped off the call. So I have let Patrick Devinger in, and he will be followed by Diana L. Patrick, if you'd like to unmute.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, I just like to say, first of all, thank you to the esteemed members of the Planning Commission, the staff, and for the project team for the Kansas Support Community for the presentation tonight. My name is Patrick Devinger. I'm here to offer my strongest support of the Kansas Support Community in our plans to relocate our campus to Lafayette. So full disclosure, I am the current board chair of the Kansas Support Community and represent a strong board. And I've served on the board as a member since 2011. In the Kansas Support Community's 30 years of history serving the East Bay community, clearly many people have been touched by this organization. And I would just like to say thank you very much to all of you who've already spoken tonight on behalf of Kansas Support Community, and to those of you who will speak on behalf. I know that there are thousands more out there. It just goes to show the reach that this organization has and the good that it does in our community, Walnut Creek and beyond. And I'd also like to disclose that I am a resident of Moraga. However, my kids went to preschool at Seedlings at LPC. We participate in LMYA sports. I run the Rim Trail frequently. And while my real estate taxes are paid in Moraga, most of my sales tax dollars go to Lafayette. You could say in some ways that I have great fondness for Lafayette and maybe even envy, but mostly because of the opportunity that you have tonight to be the new home of this treasured community as a resource for the members of our greater community at large for the next 30 years in this beautiful site. You know, perhaps more importantly, in 2008, I was diagnosed with oral cancer at the age of 30. I had just turned 30. You know, we are so blessed with incredible healthcare in the Bay Area. But I've always said, people going through the cancer journey, you know, while our disease is oftentimes in check, or at least in the best care it possibly can be in, you know, the person, you know, can oftentimes go untreated. And that's what the Cancer Support Community does. It treats the person, it treats the cancer survivor, the caregiver. My wife and I spent a year going through nearly all of the programming at the Cancer Support Community. And the support and the compassion that we received during our time there really sustains our commitment to this organization, you know, more than 13 years beyond. You know, our current facilities, they're fine. They're wonderful. They meet our needs. They're like our little clubhouse that just keeps on chugging along. But the opportunity to reimagine our new campus in Lafayette will really truly support the invaluable programming and its evolution over our history to incorporate so many you know, new approaches, you know, connection to nature and mindfulness and meditation and gardening, all the things that a 6-acre site can afford that our current site cannot. It will really truly be a beacon of hope for all of us touched by cancer, for our family, friends, and neighbors in our greatest time indeed. And I'd just like to say thank you for your consideration. I know there's no decisions being made tonight, but I'm just grateful to be here and grateful to have this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Glad you're feeling better, and maybe I'll see you on the Rim Trail at some point.
I hope so.
Diana, you are in the meeting if you'd like to make your comment, and you'll be followed by Janet Grinstead.
Hello, I am Diana Longacre, and I've been a resident of the community, born and raised. I've been in Orinda, Lafayette, Walnut Creek, and Pleasant Hill for the last 60 years. I'm a certified oncology nurse, and I've been a nurse for over 28 years, and 25 of that has been in oncology. And I decided to go into oncology when my dad and my father-in-law were diagnosed with cancer, and I saw the ability for the compassion and the knowledge and the education. And so I chose oncology, and I've been in it for many, many years, my entire career. In 2001, though, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had been teaching classes in oncology for many years, newly diagnosed patients. But when I was diagnosed, I became a patient, and I needed a support community. I needed to go somewhere where I could raise my hand and say, I work at Starbucks. I don't want to be an oncology nurse. I just needed, I'm a human being. I was diagnosed. I was scared to death. I was 40 years old, and I didn't think I was going to make it another year. And so I went to the support community, and I went to the newly diagnosed group. And I still am best friends with 2 women in that group over 20 years. And the amount of support that I received as a patient, which was free, gave me the ability to not only communicate with people that were in the same boat, but I began networking with people. I began doing different support groups. I got involved with caregiving because I had been touched with it in my family. I did nutrition. I did yoga. So when I returned back to work after a year of being out, going through treatment, I decided to give back. And so I created an oncology, newly diagnosed, where I worked. And for 16 years, every Tuesday, I taught a class on symptoms management and how to get through this journey. And then I began doing it at the support community, cancer support community. And quarterly, I do classes on symptoms management. And I know that I make a difference, but it also makes such a difference for me to be involved with a community such as we have here. And I'm very, very touched with the holistic, the complementary, the alternative, the East meeting West with medicine. I'm just touched by every single aspect. And it warms my heart to see so many people in the community that benefit so much. And so I just wanted to say that I'm a go, and I'm grateful for seeing the plans tonight. I'm very humbled, and when it goes, I'll be there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, and glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Janet Grinstead, you are in the meeting, followed by Carol Singer.
Somehow you don't have a video. That's okay. Good evening. My name's Janet Grinstead. I live in Danville. I've lived in Contra Costa County for 54 years. I'm a retired management consultant in the information services industry. A key part of my experience is researching, analyzing, and managing information. This served me well when I received my diagnosis of cancer, and when concluding that the cancer support community was likely to help me survive. I was introduced to CSC in the early 2000s, long before my diagnosis, when a colleague who'd been a client and subsequent volunteer asked me to help with the annual golf tournament fundraiser. It was my good fortune to have this familiarity with CSC when 9 years later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm a feet on the ground, strong individual, and I like to think that I would likely have handled the treatment process okay without CSC support. But I can guarantee you that after having gone through the diagnosis and treatment for cancer, that handling it okay is not good enough. My experience with CSC has resulted in my strong commitment to supporting this organization, the array of services offered, the availability of services to all cancer patients, and the longevity of CSC in our community. My understanding is that only 10% of the people in Contra Costa diagnosed with cancer use the services of CSC today. Quite frankly, that makes me sad. While people have the support of family and friends, the support from CSC and its clients also experiencing cancer treatment is invaluable. As a client of CSC, I found the current Walnut Creek facility to be welcoming and set up to support large and small group gatherings, but it is limited in size and the facility needs to grow to better support the cancer client community. While CSC works diligently to be a good neighbor to those around it, the Walnut Creek site is immediately surrounded by a residential neighborhood and nearby retail, and parking is limited. Sadly, cancer is not going away, and the Contra Costa County population continues to grow. The Lafayette site allows CSC to create more space to provide services. The site is sufficiently large to limit impacts upon neighboring properties. It's a country-like setting which provides a calming mindset for clients and provides a location that minimizes the visual and the use impacts to Mount Diablo Boulevard and others in the area. Cancer patient group sessions are not loud, noisy events. We are fighting for our lives in a dignified manner. Sometimes emotionally and mentally, your days as a cancer patient are a challenge. To be able to meet with fellow cancer patients and our counselor improves one's ability to stay the course to healing. For clients to have the option of meeting indoors or outdoors will be a blessing. I believe that cancer support community being located in the proposed Lafayette site will have minimal impact on the surrounding area with the design being proposed. It will have minimal impact on traffic at any time of day, as most groups are small group meetings of 10 to maybe 15 people, and large groups are 20 to 25 people. Thank you for this opportunity to provide remarks, and that's what I look like. I saw the button.
Thank you, and we're glad you're doing better.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Hi, Carol, you're in the meeting.
Hi, good evening, all. Thank you so much for staying up so long listening to all of these wonderful stories. I will just add one point, which I don't think has been made yet. I've lived here 52 years, and we do the facilities that have grown in this community, as Kathy Merchant mentioned, have just been wonderful and really contributed to life in this community. I do not have anyone in my family who have had cancer, but I have a good friend who did. And when this first came up, she said, well, come and see the facility in Walnut Creek. So I did, and they are everything you have heard tonight, but it is like a little medical building with a parking lot. So this facility in the setting it is would be just fantastic for them. And it's a facility for the community, the bigger community. It's like Oakwood. Oakwood is a facility for the community, but it's for physical fitness. This facility for the community is for emotional and mental health support. They go together. And I think it's rather ironic they are together, okay? They're almost next door. The difference is Oakwood took up the whole site. This facility is leaving a lot of open space, and open space is very important to the community. And I'm on the Park and Rec Commission, have been for a long time, and that's all we hear about is open space. So that I have not heard that mentioned at all, but here you have an application for a facility, just wonderful facility, beautifully designed, and it is giving us open space on that property. So I hope you will approve it. Thank you very much, and thank you for all your time and work. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Our last speaker is James Boquin, unless there are any other folks who would like to raise your hand. Keep them raised. Go ahead, James.
Thank you. Thanks very much. My name's James Boquin. I was Rob's predecessor as CEO of Cancer Support Community from 2006 until my retirement last year. And I'm now one of the many volunteers supporting the project and the organization. So I was deeply involved in the planning and the development of this project. And I can assure you that the site was carefully selected to serve the community by integrating the healing power of nature to enhance our healing programs and services. And from the outset, we were committed to engaging the city and the residents as fully as possible to ensure that the community center and its surroundings would be in accord with both the general plan and also the off-sited semi-rural character of West Lafayette. And even before we began planning the project, we brought several community leaders to the property, and we shared our vision, earnestly telling them if we would only proceed if they agreed that it was the right place to benefit the community. And of course, every one of them gave us their blessing. So we proceeded slowly, carefully, and methodically, evolving our plans to assure we stewarded the land with integrity and effectively addressed the community concerns such as, traffic, visibility, preservation of open space. We held 3 study sessions with the Design Review Commission and several dozen community meetings, open houses, and property tours. Some city staff members shared with me that we conducted more outreach than any project that they'd ever seen. And of course, that's because Cancer Support Communities isn't a developer creating a project to make a profit and go away. Instead, we've always been committed to creating a home and a resource that will serve this community for many, many years to come. The National Cancer Institute tells us that 1 out of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women living in America today will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. And in our children's and our grandchildren's generation, nearly everyone will become a cancer patient or a caregiver at some point in their lives. In other words, potentially every household in Lafayette may be served by the Cancer Support Community Campus. You heard from the Cancer Support Community team. The project's been thoughtfully and lovingly designed to be more than just a building. As I mentioned at the outset, we brought community leaders to the site for their blessing. And as the former city manager told me at that time, like the reservoir, the library, the Veterans Center, the CSC Center and campus will become a landmark and a treasure for Lafayette. What a great opportunity. What an amazing opportunity for us all. And I thank you for making this possible for our community.
Thank you.
That was also another perfect 3 minutes. Last call for hands raised for public comment. I don't see any raised. Tim Leach, one more. Coming in. Oh. He keeps sort of raising and unraising.
Keeping you on your toes.
It definitely is. Tim, you're in the meeting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So I'll start again. So I will be 3 minutes, I promise. So after the moment that you're diagnosed with having cancer, I believe your family, your friends, your doctors, therapists, oncologists, and nurses need to help create an environment for the newly diagnosed cancer patient's mindset to change from being a cancer patient to a cancer survivor. While there was no greater joy than handing a new baby into an awaiting mother's arms, there is always great sadness when I have to tell a patient that they have cancer or when I heard from a colleague of mine at John Muir back in 2019 that my wife had breast cancer. After giving someone a cancer diagnosis, my immediate next thought, whether it was with my wife or with a woman who entrusts me with her care, is to immediately pivot to getting them to see a vision in a future where they are present. I ask for them to see themselves at future weddings, graduations, family celebrations, and dying from old age and not from this cancer. But then I bring them back to the present moment and help them know how I am going to introduce them to a team of world-class healthcare providers who are going to help them with this new journey in living that long and purpose-filled life as a cancer survivor. The world-class healthcare team is in our backyard and includes many care providers and colleagues of mine who are affiliated with John Muir Health. I've been a practicing OBGYN doctor at John Muir for over 22 years and can unequivocally say that the East Bay community of patients that I serve are blessed to have a world-class institution like John Muir Health as their neighbor and their partner for state-of-the-art cancer care. John Muir's commitment to excellence is why it has been able to enter into partnerships with other regional centers of excellence like UCSF, where the two institutions are jointly breaking ground on a new state-of-the-art facility on the Walnut Creek campus to be opened in 2024. My patients are well served because of the healthcare system I practice within. As I mentioned above, that my first comments with the newly diagnosed cancer patients, not to talk about surgery or chemotherapy, but first and most important, to help them see a vision of themselves in a future where they are present. Their life as both meaningful and purposeful, and a life that can be filled with joy. Well, this sounds nice, and what every cancer survivor deserves to hear. It doesn't just happen because I say it. It doesn't just happen because they have access to world-class care. It doesn't just happen because they want it to happen. It happens because they are blessed to live in a community that has access to both world-class medical care, but just as important is access to high-quality social support services, both of which are equally important. One of those vital and indispensable support services is Cancer Support Community. Healthcare providers at John Muir and UCSF using state-of-the-art technology and chemotherapy can eradicate cancer cells, but leave a patient feeling broken and in need of emotional healing for that purpose-filled life. Cancer Support Community is a trusted resource with an expertise in cancer survivorship who welcomes everyone, including both patients and caregivers, to heal and simply says, how can we help? We don't ask for anything except your time. Cancer Support Community does not charge for our care because there is no price for your healing. Cancer Support Community is there at any time during a survivor's journey, but can be critically important after having your last doctor's appointment, your last radiation therapy appointment, done with chemotherapy. When the medical therapy is done, everyone gives you high fives and celebrates your success at beating cancer. But what I hear from cancer patients is the journey hasn't ended, but it just rather started down a different path where a new team of caregivers, your support community, plays an even bigger role of welcoming you back to the role you play in their lives. Your support community typically includes family, close friends, and neighbors, and thankfully can include Cancer Support Community as another resource to help you understand how to grow into your new role as a cancer survivor. Cancer Support Community in Lafayette is an indispensable part of my patients' healing through peer support groups, professionally facilitated classes on nutritional emotional health, and new opportunities for activism and philanthropy while living that purpose-filled life as a cancer survivor. While the immediate care team of oncologists, surgeons, nurses get lots of deserved credit for the first 9 innings, the game can be lost if you're not prepared for extra innings. Cancer survivorship starts with the first inning as the game does not end. Cancer Support Community is a team member that can help at any time after your initial diagnosis, but can be especially important after the 9th inning to help patients, caregivers, family, and friends who may be unfamiliar with cancer survivorship and what new ongoing healing looks like for everyone. I've been happy to donate to Cancer Support Community because I so believe in their mission, never thinking that my donation was going to come back and benefit me personally. We are all just one moment away from being told we have cancer and potentially benefiting from Cancer Support Community. While it is important to fund police and fire and schools, it is equally important to fund parks, open spaces, the arts, and community resources like Cancer Support Community to really have a place that people want to call home. Cancer Support Community moving to the Lafayette property will be able to have an even bigger impact on my patients' healing by creating a space touched by more light and green spaces, which will give both cancer survivors and their families a reason to call this place home and look forward to a future with family. You might just assume that a facility like CSC should be a part of any major cancer center, but as you've heard earlier, UCSF patients don't have access to a facility like CSC. Well, I've been a 22-year resident of Alamo You commissioners have an opportunity to make Lafayette an even more beloved and nurturing to its residents, as well as to the other people in the East Bay who will sadly be diagnosed with cancer. Remember, we are all one moment away from needing CSC. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
One last speaker, Kim Overa, is in the meeting. If you'd like to unmute and make your comment.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. I'm so impressed with all the commissioners, and it's been a joy to be on this meeting for 2.5 hours. Honestly, truly, it has. There's so much goodness. Everything I was going to say has been said. I just wanted to add that nature bats last, and the older I get, the more I realize how healing nature is. Outside Magazine, this is May 2019. Science's newest miracle drug is free. And just like the cancer support community is free, so graciously free, nature is. And this project is tucked and nestled into the closeness of the reservoir. It's across the street from the garden and Oakwood, as we've all mentioned. It's the healing part of Lafayette. I refer to it now because nature is such a part of all three units. And I just wanted to say a special shout out to the people of cancer support community, Rob, Peter, Libby, and Jim. I don't think I've ever worked with a group of people that have such high moral integrity and thoughtfulness and intention. And it seems as if the builders rise to the same level in incorporating everything they're doing. And I'm just excited for Lafayette to say yes, go on this project. And thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
Okay, well, with that, we will close public comment on this and go back to the applicants for any rebuttal, although I don't think there probably is much. So who's up?
I'm up, and no, I want to thank everybody who's supported us in the last hour or so. Some real wrenching stories there, but I do want to make just a few comments. Mr. Feddersen expressed some reservations about the project, and I'd just like to remind you that our project that we have submitted to you is a result of a considerable community outreach. So we've taken into account a lot of what the community has expressed to us they want us to do in developing this project. Also, I'd like to remind you, and I'm sure you all know this, that processing a project to the city of Lafayette is not easy. You have a lot of commissions that will be involved in our review. We certainly expected that. And I think once we go through that process, when it comes back to you, you'll appreciate all of the things that we have done. We are not static. We are open to remaining changes if they seem to be necessary to satisfy the other commissions that review us, design review and traffic. The project, at the time it comes back to you, will have a thorough vetting. Mr. Feddersen expressed an interest in seeing story poles. We also certainly expected to put those up. We believe the images that we presented to you, that Scott Thompson showed you, the fly around and all the individual images are very accurate. We've done the absolute best we can to represent trees, buildings, and everything else like they're going to get built. And I think when we put the story poles up, it'll support that. I think it'll also alleviate a lot of concerns that anybody in the community might have about what the building is going to look like, because we're very confident it's going to be very well screened. And you know, what you do see, Scott has done a great job making it look good. So that would address those comments. Mr. Tatson offered a few suggestions, so we appreciate his input on that. The issue of pervious pavement, you know, certainly we can look into that. I did mention we do satisfy the filtration requirements. He mentioned irrigation. You know, we can work with our landscape people and see if there's any value in irrigation. But of course, when rain's coming down, you don't need to irrigate anyhow. So I'm not sure if that works, but we'll look, it's worth looking into. Fire retardant landscaping, that's on everybody's mind these days. Again, we'll be happy to work with a landscape architect, Contra Costa Fire, who manages this, is responsible for this area, did not have any comments in that regard. Renda Moraga Fire does have some very definitive suggestions on fire retardant materials. We can look at those. And the last issue he mentioned was fire protection up the hillside. Again, we can look at that. We do know that that would be very expensive, and we're not sure of the value of it, but we take to heart everything that our community tells us they want us to look at. And so we are open to looking at all those issues, and they'll come out in our design review, and you'll hear what we have to say when we come back. And my battery is getting low here, so. Can you guys hear me anymore?
We can hear you. Yes.
Okay, I gotta turn around and plug this thing in. Okay. So I'm plugged in now, so I won't, but I'm done talking. So I'd like to see the rest of the meeting or answer any questions that the commission might have after that brief statement.
Any commissioners have questions for the applicant at this point? Okay, well, we will close that up and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Who wants to go first? There we go. Commissioner Maggio.
Well, I just have to say, in all my time on the Planning Commission, and I started as a commissioner back in 2000, I have never heard so much passion for a project. It's overwhelming. The people that have come out tonight, they've waited for hours to speak and to tell their story. It's quite a story as well. So I just have to say I'm completely in support of this project. I would also recommend that we do send it on to design review. There's a couple things I think we're particularly concerned about. There's water regulations, and I know this project really needs to meet the model water efficiency ordinance, landscape ordinance, MWELO. I know we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on submitting those kinds of things on projects, but I think it's something we really need to start doing, particularly in a kind of a rural environment as this one is, and being sensitive to a drought tolerant landscape, and then also give them direction that the colors certainly need to complement and blend with the landscape. That's really all I have.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Commissioner Strong?
Thank you, Chair. So first, I just wanted to give my sincere thanks to everyone that spoke tonight. I think I know it's a lot to share your story, and I think we really appreciate your willingness to do that. And I also want to thank the CSC for all of the outreach efforts. I think they've been unprecedented and amazing. I'm on the email list, so I get pinged when things are going on, but I also appreciated in the staff report, the document that really outlined everything that you guys have done. I think it's outstanding. And I was unaware of the Lafayette Community Council that you've been building, and I think that's wonderful. I am in agreement with the assessment and the comments that staff presented, and I am able to make all of the findings for the land use permit for the designated use. I also wanted to confirm that though I was not sitting on the Planning Commission at the time, I agree with the previous Planning Commission's decision about the land use classification. And while the specific programming requirements of the CSC may be more specific than our code's descriptions. I understand it to essentially be a community center like the JCC or the YMCA, just with a more specific focus. And for me, when I think about it as a community center, then it becomes even clearer that it falls under the community assembly and education use. So I have no issues with that. I think it's a good fit. I completely agree with Kathy Merchant's and Don Tatson's comments about the special amenities in our community, enriching our community. That's something that I found too, moving here and realizing it's a small community, but there's so much here, all the things that you need. And this is clearly something that our community needs and the surrounding area needs. I think the site is a perfect location for the CSC due to all the beneficial adjacencies that we've been talking about tonight, as well as the natural character of the site itself. And I think it's already a very nice project, and I'm sure going through the process with the DRC will tweak some things and make it even better. And I think it will fit very well within the context of this west end of Mount Diablo, in the natural context and the other major buildings that mark that side of town. It also occurred to me through the discussion and just thinking about times when I personally have felt like I've been at the doctor's office in the hospital constantly, that it's a special thing to have the CSC here in Lafayette, close enough to Walnut Creek and all of the wonderful facilities there, but also physically and visually removed from that space to really sort of enhance the benefit that members are getting from the services provided. I was just thinking I'm sure there's other kinds of facilities that provide these kind of services that are right across the street from the hospital. And I think that would probably, it's a very different thing that you guys are describing would be here in this space. Not that the services you're provided are provided by other organizations, but I mean other kinds of support facilities for people. And then moving forward, I support staff's recommendations for routing this application to the Transportation Commission and the DRC with the focus that staff outlined, including looking at materials used in and around the parking, and then also with the addition of the suggestions mentioned by Don Tatson. And I also support the request for the story poles, which it sounds like that's planned. So that's good. And that's all I have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Comments from other commissioners? Vice Chair Radnich.
Yeah, I'd just say I think this is a fantastic project. I love everything about it. I love the support from the immediate CSC community members who have, used the services of CSC, as well as just the fact that it could benefit Lafayette and the greater region as a whole. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on comments. I will echo what my fellow commissioners have already said. And I too agree with the 3 staff recommendations in the staff report for the story poles, design review, circulated into design review and transportation. Specifically for transportation, because tonight we did not discuss the driveway entrance or the proposed lane reconfiguration on Mount Diablo. So I do think it would be great that it could go to that commission as well. So I think it's a great project. I'm glad we're seeing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason?
I'm also very supportive of the project. I've lived here all my life, and too often it's the stance is we don't want anything there. Well, something was going to go there, and I couldn't imagine a better project. Although I've never personally had experience with them, a very close friend of mine was really in a bad way. She had lost her 25-year-old son to cancer, and until she reached out to CSC, I was really, really worried about her. So, I support this wholeheartedly, and, the more oaks you can plant there, the more winding paths through there, I think the better it is going to be for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I won't repeat what everybody said. I think I'm fairly on board with everything that's been stated, and I agree with the staff's recommendation. The one thing I definitely want the focus in on for transportation and circulation, I'm not so concerned about traffic per se. I'm concerned about traffic, pedestrians, and bicyclists, because that area is very well traveled by bicyclists and pedestrians, particularly on Saturdays, going to the reservoir too. So I just want them to keep that in mind as we're talking about people driving in and out of that facility. And I say this because the same issue happens in front of the reservoir. It's not a CSC issue. It's just that area of people going in and out, particularly on Saturdays. So keep that in mind, and agree with everything else, story polls, the recommendations, etc. going forward. And I'm sure we'll see it come back soon-ish. Because as I said, Mr. Piggott said, everything is very difficult here. So soonish. So Sarah, I don't think we need to move on anything, right?
I think actually a motion is great, just to wrap it up and make it formal.
Sure. Would anybody like to make said motion? Wow, look at the volunteers. Oh, Vice Chair Radnich, you usually do it anyway. We were just waiting on it.
Yeah. Well, this is a new year. This is 2021.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just pull up the item number here.
Number 7, page 2 of 3.
Okay, well, how about I will try saying, Sarah, and you can correct me if I need to. I move that we forward this this item to the Circulation Commission, the Design Review Commission, and oh gosh, I don't know, under staff's recommendations in the staff report. In addition to the items added by the commissioners, as brought up by former Mayor Tadson regarding the wildfire and drainage. What else did I miss?
I think so. Wildfire.
Lance, go ahead. No, please.
Wildfire friendly landscaping, pervious paving, and reducing irrigation, water regulations and following MWELO, colors and materials for the parking, bike ped safety. I think those were, and story polls.
And story polls, yeah. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Mason. I'm going to do a roll call. Commissioner Mason?
Aye.
Commissioner Maggio?
Aye.
Commissioner Strong?
Aye.
Vice Chair Radnich?
Aye.
And Chair Farzan, aye. So thanks everybody for your time on this. You get to now escape.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, since we are not going over item 8A, as we noted early in the session, we're at item 9. Do we have any commissioners' reports? I should ask Vice Chair Radnich, I know you've been attending, so anything to report on that end?
Yeah, I can give you an update on GPAC, so the General Plan Advisory Committee. We've been meeting bi-weekly for a few months now, and we have a meeting tomorrow. And so kind of to recap the last couple of months, the city has been hosting a variety of public outreach meetings. They're calling it think, sorry, the Housing Element 101. So I don't know if anyone else has joined and listened in, if any other of the commissioners have, but they're broken out by region throughout Lafayette. But anyone can attend any of them. There was also a youth commission, or one of the meetings was focused on the youth, and that was kind of interesting to hear. I did sit in on that one. Another part of the General Plan Advisory Committee, there's a subgroup that is evaluating the potential of updating the vision statement for the city, and just kind of evaluating if that's something that would make sense to do. And Sarah, what else am I missing? There's a lot. Basically, every 2 weeks, staff gives a presentation, because these first few months are intended to get the GPAC members and the community kind of up to speed on what the housing element is. There's obviously a lot going on with the RHNA numbers, and a lot of interest in the RHNA numbers and how they affect Lafayette. The number previously was 400. This year, or this round, it's in the low 2000s. And that's a big difference. And so trying to educate the commission as well, or the committee, as well as the public, to get up to speed so we can move forward productively. So Sarah, sorry, I already asked you to chime in and then I cut you off with my own talking. So anything else?
You did a great job. Great job. I would just recommend that, like, to kind of just tell all of your networks and friends and everyone to go to planlafayette.org. All the information is there. All the meetings are there. There's a link to Engagement HQ, which is our online digital engagement platform. We're just wrapping up sort of the information sessions, as Anna's mentioning, and now we're transitioning more to the let's get the public's feedback session. So we'll be doing some workshops towards the end of the month and early next month. So yeah.
I was going to, sorry, go ahead.
Well, please. Just last thing, thank you. Sarah, I know presentations have been made to other, city groups, like the, I don't know, the Rotary Club or something like that. And so is there going to be a staff presentation on the housing element / GPAC / housing element 101? Will that be made to the Planning Commission as well, just as it has been to some of the other groups?
So that's a great thought. So we certainly could do that. I suppose we maybe incorrectly assumed that you all know a bit more about housing elements, but that's a great point. We certainly could. And then we're planning to go to the City Council and sort of just update them on sort of the progress where we are, but we absolutely can do that with Planning Commission too, if you'd like that.
Or we can, each individually choose to listen in when it goes to City Council. I think I'm open to anything that other people, feel like they want to do. I don't think we have to do it. It just got me thinking of how comfortable are people with understanding the housing element and what's going on.
Maybe we could just be in for a joint session with City Council for that agenda item so that they wouldn't have to do it twice.
Yeah, or we could call in on our own even, if that's easier, Sarah, I don't know.
I was planning on listening in when that update is made, at least on my end of it. And the other thing I was going to say is I've also been advertising these meetings on Facebook and LinkedIn's or whatever of the world to try to tell people what's going on. And I think as importantly as it is to hear us, I keep reminding people this is your chance to hear and weigh in, and don't come in later and say, I had no idea what was going on in my community. And I'm saying that in as clear a way as I can. This is important, and this is your chance to weigh in. So get in there and say your piece, whatever it is. This is your opportunity. Commissioner Mason?
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, just looking back, how often have we had projects come before us, and all I can think is, well, why didn't you complain back when they rezoned it? I was thinking the car wash across from Akalani's, complained when they rezoned it. They came out of the woodworks once it was before us. Well,
Yeah.
to me, that's kind of too late. And, people should get involved now.
I agree. And as the point I've also made is it's not just something that's in your neighborhood. This is our community as a whole. Whether it's one part of town or the other, you're going to be affected. So this is your chance. Any other commissioners' reports? All right, none. Planning director's report?
I don't think Greg did not relay anything to me to give to you.
All right, we're 4 minutes until 10, so this is actually a fairly quick meeting. So thanks everybody. It's good to see everyone. It's been quite a while. As we joked around at the beginning of this, it's weird. I almost want to say Happy New Year, because feels like it just happened. So it's good to see everybody. It's good to see everybody participating. We're slowly getting, hopefully, to a regular world sooner than later, and maybe soon we will have these in person again. But let's keep our hopes up on that end. Have a great rest of the week, and with that, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks for a good meeting.